I'm never going to sit here and claim to be the deepest intellectual on the planet or have like the deepest shower thoughts of all time, unlike a lot of people on Reddit, YouTube, Twitter, Tumblr, everywhere else. But I know some of you do like these little chats where we kind of talk about something, and some of you find ways to challenge what I'm saying as well and talk about your own experience with it too, whether that's in accordance to what I'm saying, like it's in the same vein of thought and you agree with me or you don't, or you're a mixed bag. And I wanted to talk to you today about apologies and kind of my thoughts on it. And it might sound a little nihilistic, but I do have a point with where I'm going with this. Now, before we hop into it, we're at like 112,000 subscribers. I appreciate you all very, very much. We're continuing to grow here. We're continuing to grow over on Degenerate Plays. All the links are down below. And before we get into this, real quick, I am planning a Q&A follow-up video, not about this, but just questions that you might have for me. So if you have any questions for me, or anything that you would like me to answer in a video, I'm going to be saying this a few times at the beginning of videos in the next couple days, but be sure to write QA at the beginning, maybe a dash or a whatever or a space or whatever you want to do, and ask me a question if you want me to answer it on a video, and I'll do my best to get back to you and answer as many as I can in the coming weeks. So thanks for participating in that if you're interested, and if you're not, let's just talk. Let's hang out and have a fun time. Now, I want to talk about apologies because this is something I've been noticing and I've been on the receiving end of, and I'm 100% sure I've also been on the giving end of, and that's the meaninglessness of apologies now in modern day. This is something that Canada has been relentlessly memed on. Oh, sorry, eh? You know, that whole thing where basically people will apologize for everything that doesn't matter to try and seem nice, right? In a lot of different places, or because they think that's what they're supposed to do. But then nothing changes, right? Nothing really, nothing comes of it a lot of times. There's a really good example of this, there's a billion on this website here. I mean, like, what kind of atrocities have people committed on YouTube in the name of clout and gaining attention and getting people to notice them, or on Twitter or in other places, or even just straight up bad mistakes, right? That was not on purpose, not intentional, but it was something bad that happened on video or behind the scenes, or somebody snapped and said something real douchey. And, you know, where are we? We're at an apology. And it's so hard now to actually gauge which of these are real and which of them aren't. Now, full disclosure, if I ever do anything bad and need to apologize, you know mine is real, of course. But we're getting ahead of we're getting ahead of it there. But when it comes down to it, so many people are ready to apologize when it makes them look good, or when it's the polite and nice thing to do, but not ready to do so in their own personal lives. And a lot of the people who are ready to do it just for show don't even mean it. I mean, if you look at countless examples, and I don't really want to throw specific people under the bus, but I'm sure a lot of you could name dozens of public figures who have done something bad, and they didn't apologize for it until they got caught. They never admitted it. They never wanted to talk about it, right? Then they apologized for it, and they kind of waited for it to just blow over and for the next thing to come up. And there's also plenty of examples here, too, of people just dragging stuff up from the past that didn't really matter. Like some slightly passive-aggressive tweet from 10 years ago that somebody said, or somebody who was 13 years old with a very, like, privileged or underprivileged upbringing or whatever, saying something insensitive, and then people drag it up, you know, when they're successful. Of course, there's examples of that I don't really even think people necessarily need to apologize for, because you've changed as a person. It's been years, you've moved on, you're not that guy or girl or whatever anymore, and you would never act like that. But a lot of times I've noticed when people do admit their mistakes, a good example of this to me was someone like Mark Wahlberg, who I remember a handful of years back, he actually admitted to a violent life of crime when he was a young man involved in gangs and stuff like that. And he straight up said like that he committed basically a hate crime, and probably more than one from the way he described it, where basically these gangs where he grew up were very race related, right? Very oriented around race. And the idea essentially during this time was like, there was a lot of Asian hate. I know there's the Stop Asian Hate meme now because of COVID and everything. And there really was some problems with that, but a lot of people turned what was supposed to be a nice message into a meme is what I'm saying. But when it comes down to it back then, right, when Mark Wahlberg was growing up, race was like a big deal, like a way bigger deal than it is now. And of course, there were a lot of young men, especially in different races, whether they be white, black, Asian, Latino. You still see this in a lot of big inner cities. manipulated into like out of a life of either poverty or a lack of belonging, a lack of feeling like they belong with people, and sort of like groomed into this lifestyle by older teenagers or other teenagers their own age or older adults that hang around teenagers, which is just creepy, who run a lot of these gangs. And he was somebody who was very much kind of, worked into this lifestyle and did some hateful stuff. He threw rocks at people, hit people, and, I know a lot of people have a lot of opinions on this. It was just the first thing that came to mind for me. When you look at something like that, and you look at later on, it not really even coming out, it just him admitting to it and saying, hey, I did this stuff when I was younger, but I would, like to let go of this. I would kind of like this off of my record because I'm a totally different person. It's been decades. I'd like to make amends with these people and stuff like that. And I know that it's a very, very complex situation. People are going to have their own opinions on whether or not that's valid. But to me, when I see something like that, somebody saying, hey, look, I'm going to own up to the person I was. I said a lot of stuff. I did a lot of stuff that wasn't good. I want forgiveness. I want this to kind of stop and go away. And if it doesn't, at least I tried. That kind of apology I really respect a lot of the times because you don't have anything. There's not really like a big, huge reason for you to bring it up. I believe in that case, he was trying to get some kind of license as well that like you couldn't get if you had a felony. And so obviously to get rid of that felony, he brought this up. So I know some of you are going to say, well, Jay, you just contradicted yourself. He had a reason. Sure. But he was also Mark Wahlberg. Like he didn't need that license. He didn't need to do those things. He had plenty of money and he could float himself by forever, right? A lot of these guys or girls or whatever who admit to stuff that they did, whether it's publicly or in their own lives, and say, hey, listen, buddy, I messed up in our friendship. I was mean to you and I'm sorry, and who don't need to get called out for it. I genuinely feel like a lot of times those apologies are more likely to mean something than the people who just get called out for something and apologize to look better. And this isn't just about public figures or celebrities or Z-tier public figures like YouTubers or Z- tier like me or anyone like that. This applies to people in your own life. How many times have you had, and maybe you have the best relationships ever, you never had it, but I certainly have had it, where I feel mistreated and kind of shit on by a friend, right? And I feel just like I was treated poorly and I say something and then they apologize. And if I know that person and I know their heart, I know where that apology comes from. But if you've ever had a friend or an acquaintance who you try and reconcile with and they either won't accept your apologies or you try and talk to them and try and get them to apologize for something that hurt you and they just refuse to, they're too prideful to, they have no interest in it, stuff like that. And you can kind of see the heart of that person, right? You see the heart of that person in their lack of being willing to do it. But then it's also a catch-22 because so many people are willing to do it just to get a situation to go away. Kind of like, oh yeah, well, I'm sorry, whatever. And then you drop it. And I feel like it's very hard nowadays because of how flippant these apologies are, how useful they are to get out of trouble publicly when you get caught, to get out of trouble in your own friendships when you get caught. Like the husband or wife who's always sorry when they get caught cheating, but not sorry while they're doing it. It's so hard to actually identify when these are meant now because of just the flippancy of them and the frequency of it. And I guess with that, it's just, I'm not trying to like hit an 8-minute mark here and end it. I have more to say, so I'm not outroing, I promise. With that, for me, it's so frustrating because I really want to live in a world, and I'm mainly just talking about this, but I really want to live in a world where I know that if someone wronged me and I say, hey man, this really hurt my feelings, this made me feel bad, or this was just a poor way to behave, like this is just not honorable, it's piss poor actions and disrespectful. I want to live in a world where if I go to someone and say that, I know that they will either apologize if they're truly sorry for it, or they won't bother and I can see what type of person they are. And I feel like when they don't bother and they were in the wrong, not I'm being the most sensitive baby on the planet, but they really were in the wrong, that shows me what type of person they are, right? They really truly did do something that's not defensible, and they're not willing to own up to it. They're not willing to do anything about it and try and make it right. But so often I feel like when we go to people and try and fix things or try and say something bothered us to try and make it better, it's almost not worth it. A lot of times, a lot of times I had a friend who we would always have problems getting along, and, it would always come back to sorry, but nothing would ever change, right? And I would do my best after every apology to change something that bothered him. Like if I did something truly rude or not nice or was being too demanding or whatever, I would try and change that. But I noticed that when it came the other way around, when the apology would come to me, there would be no change. And this is kind of one of the things that made me think about it, because I'm so tired of how meaningless a lot of these words are to people, how they're supposed to matter and have more of an impact and meaning behind them. But we're kind of taught that nothing matters anymore, like in school and in life and stuff like that. One of the things I hear the most that matters is like your happiness. Your happiness matters the most. And it's such a self-centered, egotistical way to look at the world of, I am me, I operate in first person, therefore I'm the most important above all else, right? Above all others. My happiness matters most. So if I'm dating Brenda and I'm dating LaShondra, and they're both hot as hell, and I'm caught cheating on LaShondra with Brenda, then it benefits me to say I'm sorry if I can still get some action with Brenda, right? Because my happiness is what matters. How I treat these other people, it's irrelevant. They're side characters in my story, right? I'm the main character. And so many people go around with this main character syndrome of like, I'm the most important person ever. I matter the most. These other people don't matter. What I should do is keep up appearances. It's so sociopathic. I should keep up appearances because I can get more out of them to increase my happiness and then move on. But I genuinely believe that a lot of how the world was meant to be, or at least how it operates the best, is if people prioritize their fulfillment and their happiness, yes, but prioritize that in other people around them too. They want to make their neighbors happy. They want to improve someone's life. They want to make them smile. They want to make sure that they're not undercutting everyone around them just to get ahead. And I know that's a fairy tale world that will never exist. And it's sad to even say that, but it's just true. We all know it. But I'm so sick and tired of how you can't expect good out of people. You can't go to someone and want to reconcile things and expect them to accept your apology, because they'll probably either think it's fake, or because the internet has made it so easy to make new friends, you're disposable to them. So when you do something bad and apologize, they don't need you anymore. Like they're on to the next person because you are disposable. There's a billion of you, and they can find someone else and your apology is worthless. But then if you try and get someone to apologize for something, you can't tell a lot of times, unless you truly know their heart very well and you know them very personally, if they mean it or if they're just doing it to try and bury a situation or get away from it. It's just disheartening. It's something that makes me sad. It's something that I hope made somebody think about it today. Not to be like a preacher, but I genuinely believe the world would be better if people were more interested in making others fulfilled and themselves, and being willing to try and cooperate and work together with people towards goals or happiness or fulfillment or whatever, collaboratively, and try and make the world happier, make the world a better place where people know that you're honest, know that you mean what you say, that your word has value. Even if you promise something, that you will do your absolute best to do it. If something falls through that's outside of your control or there's an emergency, fine, but that you are trustworthy. Your apologies, your promises, those things matter to you and to people around you. And it makes me really sad that there's just so much nihilism, and there's so much of this thought that those things don't matter, that the people around you aren't the main character, they're not you, and so to an extent they matter to the point at which you can use them and then move on. I've heard this term a lot, and it really disgusts me, where people say that someone's almost a stepping stone in their life, or a relationship is a stepping stone, or a friendship is a stepping stone, or a job is a stepping stone. And while there are ways to look at things as a means to advance, like a job, where you still go in and do your best, but you plan to move on to other things, I think so many people use each other and use these institutions of like apologies and emotions and connections to get ahead, and they don't mean anything they're saying. Yeah, I really think that our world has raised generations of liars, of angry people who don't know why they're angry, of people who believe they're the main character in life and that you're not, and of people who don't have anyone's best interest at heart except their own. And what makes me sad about that is that people like maybe me or maybe you who's watching, who want to believe in the good in people around you and want to assume positive intent, you're wary of that. You know that there's so many people out there who don't have your best interest at heart and don't care about you and see you as disposable. So you're constantly on edge and not trusting people because of it. And it becomes this just vicious cycle that I thought of with apologies, because it's just so often that there's words said that don't mean anything and words said that don't lead anywhere. And I'm going to kind of end it here because I feel like if I keep talking about this, I'm just going to go back around in circles, because it's very much easy to talk about this kind of thing for a long time. But I'm interested in your thoughts down below on what you think of this. Maybe if you've experienced this in your own life. I know sometimes for some of you, it feels nice to hear someone else talk about something like this and be like, hey, I've had a similar experience. You know, I can't believe that somebody else felt that way too and was willing to articulate it. And I know for other people, it's like, geez, will this guy ever shut the fuck up? Like, just move on. We don't want to hear about apologies. Fair enough either way. We're at the end of the video, so you can let me know what you think in the comments down below. And if you're interested in participating in the Q&A, also in this video or upcoming videos, if you want to write QA in before your comment and then say a question that you'd have for me in an upcoming video or something like that, I would love to do my best to answer them. I'll get to all of them I can. I can't promise I will get to all of them, but I'll do my best. So thank you very much for watching. I hope you have a fantastic day. Please leave a like if you enjoyed this. Let me know your thoughts. Subscribe for more content. As always, everyone, stay shui.